realistically, we just wanted to cause a mess. We wanted to make a scene. We wanted to be different.
If you can do something like that, then you don't have to go ahead and do those attacks in the future. Just the threat of doing those attacks will stop it. You've done a phishing attack and you've got the username and password, but surely you're using MFA or two-factor authentication. So how have they got hold of that information as well?
I see a lot of conversations that I'm having quite regularly. They stem around Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus.
Also, they were on about Teams meetings, weren't they, at these things? They were making sure people turned their cameras on for Teams meetings so they knew it was actually those employees. That means they must be coming in from random machines, not corporate devices.
I think realistically, it's about the next part of going, how do you implement that? Where do you start? Everything from our VDI, our DAS, all of these implementations are about keeping things secure, but without hampering on how everyone can work.
Hello, and thanks for joining the Axess Connect podcast. This is super exciting. It's one of the first of many in our brand new podcast series. So look, keep an eye out for more. We're going to be doing a lot more of these as we go. Follow along and subscribe, and hopefully you'll get something out of this as we go on. I'm Chris. I'll be your host today, and we're really focusing on one big question per episode. So this one is, how do you secure access to your data without slowing down your people? Joining me today, we've got Dan from Axess Systems, one of our senior consultants who works hands-on with our customer security, and Kat from Citrix, who's here to share more insights on how Citrix is evolving to meet those emerging threats as well. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Chris.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. It's the first one, guys. It's amazing.
It's exciting.
It's amazing.
My first podcast as well, so yeah.
Yeah, same here.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So look, let's get straight into it. I really want to kind of launch this one off as a really good pilot, and hopefully we'll get people coming back. So Dan, I want to start with something that's been all over the headlines. Yeah, M&S, Co-op, two huge retail giants, recently hit with a massive cyber attack. It's all over the news. You know, how is it that low-skilled attackers, literally teenagers in some cases, are now able to cause this much damage?
Well, it's quite simple, really. It's just phishing attacks. So they're just able to fire up a little server, something in like DigitalOcean, put some software on there, and then just fire out the emails. Go into people's mailboxes, and people just click happy, click on the links, and enter the details, and the hackers have got whatever they need.
And worryingly, you make that sound so easy as well.
Well, it is. You could probably do it in half
Like
an
he
hour.
knows, yeah.
And Kat, I suppose from the Citrix side, you know, how is Citrix positioning itself then to protect against what's now very unsophisticated but high impact threats?
I think just to touch on the unsophisticated part of this, I don't know if anyone saw the BBC News report on this, where the hackers actually reached out to the expert who works at the BBC for hacking and cybersecurity. Their main motive, apparently, they said, was to cause chaos. So how do you protect against that? Now, people where it's information or people that are trying to steal money, there's a motive. It's quite okay, I protect A or B or things like that. So when it's people going in there just to cause mischief or just to cause a problem, that's when you have to secure everything. I think the key part from Citrix is being able to say that it's basically our entire platform. All of the different elements of it are now secure by design. That's the policy that we're actually putting in place and has been intrinsic for Citrix for many years now.
Just going back to like the causing mischief, they put ransomware on there, so they're obviously after some money. So I'm not sure if
there's
causing
always money involved,
mischief
for
and
sure.
stuff like that. Yeah, it's more of
but
getting
the
money
quote
out
was
of it.
that. Yeah, they said they obviously wanted money. I think that well, we could argue everybody does to a degree. But the key tagline was they wanted money, but they also wanted to cause chaos. I think that was something I paraphrased, but that was the quote. And I was like, okay, you can protect against the money or them trying to steal certain sets of information, but they went in there specifically to make an M&S particularly, but they did do it with Co-op and Harrods. And then they leaked it to this guy and said, look, you're an expert within the industry. You're in the media. We've done this and we've scrambled all of the data, so now they can't use it. And we did it, because we want money for them to fix it. But realistically, we just wanted to cause a mess. We wanted to make a scene. We wanted to be different. I suppose maybe that's what teenagers are like.
Well,
I know we've all been there.
A lot of it's notoriety, because
yes, true.
If you can do something like that, then you don't have to go ahead and do those attacks in the future. Just the threat of doing those attacks will stop it. Because years ago, I spoke to a security expert, and he was telling me about there was a group who put I think it was 2 days before the Grand National, they contacted a betting company, and they said, we know this backdoor into your company, and we're going to do this on the Saturday of Grand National. And that threat it was for millions of pounds. It was something like 12 million, I believe it was. But that threat was enough for them to pay out because there was so much money that goes over on betting on the Grand National Saturday. So they paid that out even though they didn't know whether the hack was genuine or not. And but if it's coming from like a notorious group or something like that, sort of, it's a credible group that has carried out these attacks before, you will pay the money because you won't take that chance.
Oh, completely. Yeah. And I think knowing the industry, and this is obviously where they go away and they research it or they understand that, we will understand that. It's much like how Amazon, their Black Friday is probably one of their biggest, well, it's Black Month now, isn't it, pretty much? But that is probably one of their biggest sales things and things. So obviously within betting, Grand Nationals, huge, like Kentucky Derbies, all that sort of stuff, all those are going to be their biggest betting things of the year. So you're right, you've already got them, where they wanted them. It's scary stuff.
Yeah, and is it Marks and Spencer who hacked as well? I believe that was it 2023. They outsourced all their outsourced and upgraded all their IT systems for £1 billion. So that's they'll be going back up to whoever supplied that and trying to find out what's gone on there. I bet.
Oh, 100%. And I think regardless of where it's come from, if it's a plethora of different vendors or if it's done with a service provider, there's always this due diligence. I think, jumping ahead, Chris, I think there's some questions I know we definitely want to ask on that, but it's about actually really deep diving into your infrastructure and stuff that may have been relevant 5 years ago, 6 months ago, whatever. Always is evolving. So it's always about making sure that stuff is still working how you want it to, still secure how you need it to be now. And is it still fit for purpose?
That's true, yeah, and it's where the checks are coming from as well with this kind of thing. It's like, all right, you've done a phishing attack and you've got the username and password, but surely you're using MFA or two-factor authentication. So how have they got hold of that information as well? So it tells me they're not using any kind of second form of authentication. Also, they were on about Teams meetings, weren't they, at these things? They were saying they were making sure people turn their cameras on for Teams meetings so they knew it was actually those employees. So that means they must be coming in from random machines, not corporate devices. Because, it's because surely
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I think those sort of checks is really important. I suppose looping it back to the Citrix part, but that's obviously where I am, so that's how I can talk about it. There's not just checks that you do on entry. Yeah, MFA, SSO, all that sort of stuff is great. And whether you do it with a third party or you do it with some of the providers you have underneath, whether it be Microsoft, Okta, etc., or obviously all of those within there. That's great. You're checking the person coming in at the door, but this is where hackers have got incredibly clever. That can change. They can mimic those things. Obviously, okay, AI is getting a bit extreme from that point. You're not just going to AI someone's face, but there's more those parts of things of being able to do the contextual access once someone has then logged in. So it's about being able to do contextual real-time checking of those users while they're working. So, okay, great. At the start of a day, I've logged in, I've done all of these checks that you wanted me to do, but maybe I left my computer open. Maybe someone's managed to infiltrate it and then there's software sitting on there that we haven't checked or run away. Or physically, I've left it open in an office or a coffee shop or something like that. Someone's able to go on there and do that. It's being able to check throughout the day without just doing password checks, but things like your Wi-Fi has changed, so you're now into a different area. We don't think that's secure. We're going to lock access to this information or this app, or all these different types of checks. So it can be down to your MAC address has changed, your IP address has changed, your location has changed. We're not sure you're you anymore. Can you verify that you're you? But it comes back to that question you said at the beginning. How do we do that without it impacting our user experience? Because there's only so much you can go to with a user before they go, well, this is too hard to work. And then they find another way. Then they become the problem, right?
Yeah. So, there's things like that. So, like we're going back to Citrix as well. If you look at, if you're coming in through Netscaler or through the Citrix Cloud Gateway, you can put your checks in place for certificate on the corporate device. So if you haven't got if your laptop or your PC hasn't got that corporate certificate on it or reg key on there, what it's checking for, you're denied access. So these hackers who are coming into M&S or Co-op and stuff, why weren't those checks being made? You think when you're spending £1 billion to upgrade your IT, you think you'd be putting security things into place like that to stop that from happening?
That opens up an interesting question there, though, Dan, doesn't it? Because do you think that customers are even aware of how advanced this stuff has got, or do you think they're still just looking for, dodgy links and fake PDFs?
It's that I think it's that. I don't think people truly understand how many attacks are happening here. I think just a candid story, obviously can't say names and things like that, but there's a lot of things out there. We start looking at this balance of scale of adding security checks at that entry point. They're still relevant, still very important, because that's how a lot of people are getting in. Those phishing emails, we still get caught by them. That's still important. But it's about being able to check more than just the ransomware, being able to see how clever these things are. It's not just people being able to get it through text messages now. People are infiltrating things through IP. They're getting it all the way in through all sorts of different methods as well. So I think just the anecdotal story there was a customer, a friend of mine actually been working with, had said, look, okay, these are too many checks. It's becoming too difficult for our employees to work on this. I don't want this. I don't want this level. I don't want that on there. I just want this level of security. They'd been warned by their service provider that they'd said, that's too out of date. You will get problems if you do that. They had a ransomware attack within 48 hours of them taking away the security that they said it was too hard for them to work with it in there. So if that's the case, now that's an extreme example, right? How do we pose this going forward for customers that we want to be able to secure them, but we don't want to make it too difficult to do your work? So that was an open question for you guys. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when we take new customers on, we always do security checks with them, health checks, security checks, and we find a lot of the time, a lot of customers are compromised or are operating bad practices where you can have data loss. So they could be opening drives up that are being passed through to machines at home and stuff like that. And I think it's very important for these companies to have do your health check, have a health check, Citrix health check, have a bit of a security health check as well on there, just to make sure that information is not being passed through. And then these reports will tell you if it needs locking down, and will tell you other avenues of security you can apply as well. Because what I found with companies is that the majority only pay lip service to the security. They'll talk a good game, but in reality, they don't implement any of it. And you can go on to, I don't even know the website, is it What Do They Know, which has all the freedom of information requests on there. If you go and have a look at a lot of IT freedom of information requests on there for like public organizations, they've virtually got no information security budget. It's either like 10,000 or it's zero, or and that's only going to pay for a bit of training. It's not going to pay for any software for anyone. And yeah, they talk a good game, but in reality, they're not really operating the security that they say they do, and it's putting very sensitive data at risk. This is as well. It's like you imagine getting into a hospital and you can see X-ray and medical records and things like that. It's something that they say they're doing, but in reality they don't. And that's why these checks, these health checks we do, really highlight these things. And we get a great response from doing them, don't we, Chris, the health checks?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's something that we hear a lot is it's a Citrix problem. Yeah, it gets thrown around quite a lot. But the reality is, more often than not, I see it's more of a poorly optimized deployment. It's not configured correctly. There's a setting that hasn't been implemented. It's not naivety, but in some cases just miseducation. They're not aware of something that needs to be turned on or done in that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Chris. I think you're right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say everything's perfect, and also not trying to say that the original deployment of the Citrix environment that they did there wasn't correct. It probably was, and it probably did work optimized at that time. It's about rechecking things. You can't just do something and then leave it and expect it to be the same. It's about every time that there's a change. So, okay, change management, but every time there's a change, or every time there's a change environmentally around the environment that you're working in, it's about making sure that everything that you implemented previously is still fit for purpose. So as you said, optimizing it, health checks, they're so important about coming back and doing this. Because as you said, it may not necessarily be the Citrix environment that's the problem within there. To know, there could be. It could be, have you patched and managed it recently? Is there a particular issue that is, you have been made aware of, or maybe missed, or something like that, of going, actually, we've patched it, and it's software, it's patched all the time to be able to optimize it, remove any vulnerabilities, and make sure that things work smoothly as well as they possibly can. I think the next part in there is going, have you checked the rest of your stack? Have you checked that all the rest of the software is still working with the Citrix environment you need it to do? As you said, 9 times out of 10, it's due to an optimization issue that's actually sitting somewhere outside of the Citrix environment. It could be due to a profile bloat issue within Outlook or something. It could be due to an out-of-date version of a particular application, and that could be that it's conflicting within there. And it's not to say, as I said, there may be issues and patching within the Citrix environment that may need to be done, but it's about checking the whole thing. That's why there's a huge advocate for being able to do health checks with you guys, because there's more of a vendor agnostic element. You're not just looking at the Citrix, so you can look at the whole environment of the customer.
That's true, yeah, because we operate like looking at the Citrix, but also looking at a security perspective as well, and that's what when companies have a lot of the health checks, it just looks at purely at Citrix and doesn't take into consideration if a user can like break out or if they can access drives they shouldn't be able to access it. Can they get to the PowerShell? Can they run commands? Because if you've got PowerShell prompt or anything like that, basically you can enumerate the whole AD domain with low privilege as just a standard user. And we even look at that kind of thing just to make sure that they can't do that, and advise them how to stop it if they are being able to do that.
I think the next part to say onto that, and it actually goes back to your point you were saying earlier, Chris, it's about education on it. So yeah, we're not trying to say that Axess is going to come in and make everything brilliant. I think it's about you coming in, showing them the health checks of it, and then, teach a man to fish, being able to show them some of the tooling within there. Now, obviously, I don't advocate for you putting in an environment 25 years ago and then expecting it to still be worked today. There probably are still some out there, by the way, that are still working. That's great. But it's about them being fit for purpose for now. The security attacks of back then are not going to be the same as now. There's also so much new tooling within the Citrix environment, whether that be from some of the acquisitions of the products we've taken on, so things like Device Trust, Uber Agent, etc., or some of the advancements within our own tooling as well. So within NetScaler, being able to use the console, being able to use our analytics functionality, all of that sort of stuff, all of that gives you a nice big window of information. And then I think it's about education of what you do with that information. They can collate all the different attacks that attacked your system last week that you maybe didn't know about. It could have a look at all of these different bits of information of where there might be weaknesses. Also, importantly, what your users are doing. So I think that's quite impactful to be able to take that back to the original question to go, we can look at it from a security point of view. We can also look at it from a performance point of view. How well are these users being able to access their systems? Are some of the checks and things that we're putting in the first place impacting logon times, being able to get to a certain application, or just hindering things, which are then causing the users to multi-hot, double-hot, use shadow IT, use something else within there, which is then causing you a further vulnerability because we secured it, we did a good job, but we've now made it really hard to use.
Yeah, I think you need those kind of checks in place, and just for like things like geofencing as well. Like, say you're a company who only has employees in the UK, and then you start getting people connecting from outside, like America or something like that. You need to know that as soon as possible. And with like Citrix Analytics, you can put the alerts in, or you can put the alerts into into NetScaler and stuff to have it send you different types of alerts for email and things like that. That allows you to know as soon as someone from outside of the country and still is accessing your gateway that is happening, rather than finding out 3 months later when you've been hacked. Oh yeah, look at these IPs in our firewall log. No, they were coming. They were coming in from America and stuff like that. And you want it there and then, which Citrix Analytics and the NetScaler will do for you.
Yeah, 100%. I think just to add on to that, Dan, as well, obviously those parts, and I remember all my training and stuff I did on those, I was really fascinated with those products when they first came out, and they've come on leaps and bounds now. We've got to a point as well with the integration of Uber Agent, which then means it's every endpoint within there. It's not just all the Citrix parts. It gives you a way broader view, which is fantastic. Still using all of those checks and balances that you had of being able to go, is this user in the UK? No, there's somebody from China. That's not okay. And then all of this sort of stuff to go, right, well, we're going to block them for that user. You may also be, as you said, a global company where you're looking around everywhere. So it's quite hard to block certain things. But you can go, okay, well, I know that user works across Europe. I didn't expect them to be in Belarus. So I'm going to now say they can't access that application. So you can go down to that level of granular detail. They can still log in to get to their emails maybe, but we're locking down our sensitive information. And then if it be the case of going, oh, they're now downloading data, I don't feel comfortable, you can cut off those downloads and then cut off their access. So it's all down so you get granular level. It's not an on-off sort of situation. And I really think that's quite interesting. Going back to the earlier part, I said, well, the bit I suppose I'm really fascinated by at the moment is device trust that we've taken on. So we purchased them at the end of last year, and being able to do the contextual access once the user's logged in is fascinating. So if your IP address changes, if your location changes, anything, you can't access things. But the really key part here, and as I said, I'm a difficult user. I'm one of those people that goes, why can't I do that? I'm going to find a better way of doing it. I know I'm annoying. But the next part within there is going, they pop up a little alert. So say, for example, if my Wi-Fi suddenly cut out now and I had to go onto 4G and we hadn't allowed that by policy, I would get kicked off this call, but an alert, a message would come up on my screen, which we can customize as admin. We can customize that, in the back end. It says, if this policy does this, then this is the code that they come up. And it'll say, you have been locked out because you've gone onto 4G Wi-Fi. To be able to change that, you need to go back onto a stable connection, or you need to be back on this IP address, or you need to be plugged in. And you can stipulate it. I think education really down, not just from the admin of a customer, but down to a user is imperative, because then we'll actually get people to start being secure themselves. Hopefully, maybe.
Definitely, yeah. Device trust, brilliant for that, because you make a change, you turn your firewall off, which has been applied by the policy. Yeah, your screen comes up and you're locked. You can't go back into your session until your machine complies with the policy again, and that's great. And it's proactive. It's proactive and reactive, isn't it? Rather than being just at the login point, it's during the session, which is great. I think that's a really good acquisition for Citrix.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. Oh, wow, I've been excited by all the ones recently, but this one, I've done a lot of work with them over the past month or so, and it's been really fascinating. And my point of view, if I look at it from a user point of view, that bit being able to tell me why I don't have access is really important, because I could hear all admins screaming at us when we start saying, oh, we're going to be able to lock people out. You're like, no, you're going to absolutely overload our help desk. This will be insane. But if you tell the user why and how they need to fix it, which, as I said, can be customized and changed depending on the rules you've put in place, hopefully it would mean you wouldn't get, those extra go, well, I can't get in, my Citrix doesn't work. You're not going to get that because your screen has told you exactly how you should fix that. Yeah. So I think, and being able to see that in real time, I've seen a lot of demos of those, and I think that would be really interesting. Something we could show later on down the line of how this stuff works in real time. Would be fascinating.
Definitely, yeah, that'd be great.
And just from a customer side then, how realistic is it for an organization that's heavily on-premise, has old legacy applications, devices and stuff like that, to actually move into, what is looking like a zero trust model then?
Well, it shouldn't
Dan, you can do it.
Well, it shouldn't be that much of a problem at all. I mean, you just need to go through and analyze the environment and stuff and just see what can be moved and how you can deliver it. So, yeah, it's just an assessment of the environment and then see what the best way forward is to put into a zero trust model.
I think I'll add my 2 pence if it's helpful. The key part within there is, as you said, your design review, being able to have a look at the customer's environment right now. Now, we were all talking about these really fancy bells and whistles and stuff, and don't get me wrong, that from an Uber agent and device trust and overall Citrix point of view, these things aren't really difficult to deploy. Now, as they get bigger, obviously there are going to be further complexities, but it's about analyzing where a customer is at that point. As you're saying, if they've got legacy environment on premises, we've got to work with them. Where do you want to be? Okay, you want zero trust, but do you want a hybrid environment? Are you looking at full cloud? What does good look like for you? Where do you want to be? And then working that backwards, going, right, this is your desired state. Let's work this backwards of these are the key points that have to be in there. Now, for the context of this particular question, security is going to be very high up there. Imagine if we were doing this with the co-op next week, you'd be going, right, security's top thing. That's what we need to work on. Let's have a look at the current environment that you've got and work out where the problems are within that. And then we're not going to say this is going to cost millions or whatever, but rebuild those things where there's those vulnerabilities, where there's those holes, and then start rebuilding the environment so it's got that sort of secure design built into it from the ground up, rather than just wrapping something around it at the end.
I love that. And you've pretty much taken what I was going to talk about next, which is
do it anyway because it might sound better from your voice.
No, it's interesting because a lot of vendors that we work with, obviously being impartial somewhat to just Citrix, but a lot of vendors that we talk about, they talk about layering security on top. But Citrix talk about
don't get
security.
me wrong, we've done it for years, but now I think over the past 2, if not 3 years, we've not flipped it. And I remember my initial whiteboards when I joined Citrix, 7 and a bit years ago, we would talk about it. And I remember drawing the little dotted line at the end that said security, because that's really important. It was really important to do that wraparound at the end. But now we're talking about a secure by design policy. Now, I get it. That's a great marketing thing. But what does that actually mean? But it's everything from the ground up, everything from our VDI, our DAS, all of these implementations are about keeping things secure, but without hampering on how everyone can work.
I love that.
Yeah, I know from experience and looking at a lot of implementations, we used to go and sort of up for Citrix and stuff, and nothing was designed who had been implemented. Nothing was designed from like being secure from cradle to grave for the whole process. So you'd have like
it was about access, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What you could do. I really enjoyed the any message that we had, but I still think it's important. You can have any, but have that secure. I suppose that leads into some of the questions and stuff we were definitely talking about on this, which was how do you cope with users that want to use their own device? How do you cope with users that are maybe contractors or third parties where you have them for a shorter period of time? I suppose I'll throw that back to both of you. What would you do if you had a customer that said, I have got this, and I am now going to have, I don't know, 20% of my workforce are going to be third parties, and I would like them to use their own device because I don't have the infrastructure, the costs available to me to be able to buy them all devices that I run.
Okay, so if you don't really, if you want like a less trusted desktop for the user to use, it doesn't have as much confidential information on and things like that, you could always use a smart access policy. So smart access policy, and gives them a desktop or access to applications which aren't critical to the business and have crucial information on there. So you can do all that kind of thing. Or you can create different kinds of end factor flows within Netscaler Gateway to do Netscaler, I should say, to do that, where this user is working outside. Is this, so it does checks when you come in? Are you an employee or contractor? Things like that. They can work if you're internal or external. Are you working on a company device? Things like that. And so they only get access to resources that they should be getting, and there won't be any kind of data loss to the company. So you can just really secure it from all the way, or from the login process and onwards.
And it's
I really like that, Dan. Yeah,
it's. I see a lot of conversations that I'm having quite regularly. They stem around Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus as well, because contractors are now pretty much being mandated that they have the ability to audit their machine, even if they are bring your own device machines, that they need to have log access for a certain amount of time, so they can actually demonstrate what those contractors have access to and where they're going as well. And that's one of the reasons why I'm quite excited about device trust as well, because I think that pretty much answers that question in its entirety. If you can have contextual access that's continuous, then that ticks that box really quickly.
Oh, you've read their website well. Tick, continuous and contextual. I love it. That was great. I think the really key part as well, and it depends how much we want to keep this in or not. I've had many conversations about Cyber Essentials over the years. It's not something that's brought up daily. It's a conversation when we go into security. It's about them being certified or hitting this gatepost, right? And as I said, I think all of you have chats about it quite often. There's a particular part on there which I'm quite concerned that it's quite outdated, and I'd really like to address it or have your views on it. As we said, we can cut this out or leave it as much as you want within there. I think the key part within there is about you have to have a VPN. The Cyber Essentials part says you have to have a VPN. Now, don't get me wrong, VPNs have had great use cases. They've still got really good information of why you would implement them and why they're in certain places for certain things. But they came about from the 90s. There are better ways of securing access now. And I think they do have their place. There's still important parts that we have to do within there. But having to have that as part of this accreditation, certification, etc., I feel is a little bit outdated. Maybe that's me being polite of that view, but I'd be really like to understand your views on that, or I suppose see where I'm coming from of how you can do that in a slightly different way.
Well, the when you connect in with Citrix anyway, with Gateway and through DAS, that's SSL VPN, isn't it? Anyway. So
Yes, that is true. There is a VPN element to the part of the bottom of that, but it's the fact that I suppose maybe I'm going down to the nuance of the wording of it. So using Netscaler as an SSN VPN within there is actually doesn't always tick the box of it being a VPN, apparently, because you're doing these different types of access within there. Obviously, we know that that's newer. We know that that's secure. I think all of you have seen that as well, that is still secure and it does still tick the box for Cyber Essentials within there. It's just that VPN part. It just causes problems.
Yeah, to me, the way that Citrix does it seems more secure. Because if you've got a VPN client on your endpoint, so if you gave it to someone who didn't have a trusted company endpoint and they put the VPN on, then that machine has got complete access in
complete access. So you have I think what's more important, and I don't think Cyber Essentials should say, hey, they've got to have device trust or they've got to have continuous contextual access. That'd be great because that just gives it all to us, right? But I think the key part within that is being able to have, the SSO, the MFA, I suppose gated and contextual access is really important, not just have they got a VPN. There's so much more to it than that. Because as we all know, I think anyone, even in their personal lives, you can get a VPN to go access things within America that maybe that you wouldn't have had access because of a contextual point in the past. People do it if they want to watch BBC from the UK, if you're based in the Philippines. Everyone can use a VPN for however they want to use it. But you're right, it gives you full access rather than it being, I would like you access because you have this level to this application. That's the important bit, I think. And we're in a day and age now where we need to be that granular.
Yeah. Just going back to what you're saying about contracts as before accessing, another thing is session recording. So if you don't fully trust these users or you want to keep an eye on what they're doing, because they're external companies and things like that, session recording is a great thing, and enable session recording for those delivery groups and machine catalogs that you want to watch the users on or want to monitor what their behavior is, because that's a great thing to be doing, and that's all included as well, isn't it, with the licenses and all the latest Citrix licenses. So it's able to use it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I won't go into all the products and features and everything today, but Analytics and Uber Agent is included in the Universal Hybrid Multi-Cloud license, so the UHMC license. So you get all of those baked in. It's not the case that you go, oh, I need to upgrade to have these changes and parts. The analytics functionality with those security elements, equally device trust is included within there as well. So all of this contextual access stuff is all included. I think realistically, it's about the next part of going, how do you implement that? Where do you start? And that goes straight back to those design reviews again. What point are you at? Some people might be on a hybrid infrastructure journey where they've already got MFA deployed, they've already got a plethora of different users, maybe with some golden images. Great. You're probably at a stage where it's just going to be tweaking, just implementation maybe of these newer features, being able to get within there. In comparison, you may have a customer that's going, we've got legacy implementations, we've got older applications that we're using Citrix to be able to access. Great, that's not a problem. We're used for that as well. But then that's going to be a tidy up journey. Let's make sure everyone's on the latest release, make sure everybody's secure from a vulnerabilities point of view, and then you can start building up from there. But it's using the Netscaler parts from the outset as well, being able to go, right, let's monitor our traffic, and then we can start controlling the traffic.
Yeah, and another thing with the Netscaler is the single sign-on ability, Netscaler and Citrix Dash. So, if you've got Okta or you've got Microsoft MFA and things like that, you just log in with your email address, and it goes through and it'll launch your desktop or application seamlessly because you've got Citrix FAS, which then does the single sign-on bit. So you've got all that. Whereas with a VPN, you may have to log into different things all the time. So you're constantly, it's not a good experience for the user. And plus you're able to monitor it as well a lot better with the MFA side of things and Okta.
I suppose a question for you guys, and it doesn't obviously. I'm guessing now the current companies that we're at, their user experience is probably going to be relatively good in terms of how many times we have to log in, and this doesn't necessarily have to be your own experience, but how many login, I suppose, different gates have you heard or you had to go through personally to get into, say, an application or your work before?
It depends on the application, doesn't it? But equally, it's an interesting question. I've had applications that I've had to log in numerous ways, several factors, passwords that then, the worst ones are the ones that now email you two-factor tokens. I mean, that feels almost, going backwards, if they've got access to my email, then they've already got my two-factor as part of that.
I know, right?
So yeah, there's
that actually
definitely
links into another one. And it was more a reminder because they were hacked quite a long time ago. But anyone for any gamers out there was Steam or Valve was hacked a while ago. And it was just a reminder, that the data has still been lost out there and it's still a problem. But the classic ones like that, where they use a token like Battle.net, where they send you and you're like, you're sending me on an email. Why? And I get it that there's still lots of security parts with that where that is still relevant. But I suppose my leading for that, and it's because I have the attention span of a gnat most of the time. But apparently the attention span for anyone trying to log in or trying to do a particular task when it's IT based, or if you're waiting for something to load, like a web page, an article, etc., is 4 seconds. So that came actually, I can't reference the source, but it was previously from an advertising or marketing thing going, you need to grab someone's attention within the first 4 seconds. But it's still relevant for if you're trying to log in X amount of times. So that's how long you've got to be able to keep someone within there. Now, I fully appreciate MFA is going to take longer than 4 seconds. So you've got a grace period, right, of being able to do that. But if you're asking someone to log in, then log in again, then log in again, that's when you're going to start finding people are either going to find other ways of doing things, or they're just not going to be productive enough. And that's that scale we were talking about at the beginning. Great, everything's super secure, but how productive are your employees? How much do your employees actually like working there? Is there going to be an attrition factor to your company because using your IT is difficult, or being able to do their daily tasks is difficult? So there's a balance, right? But it's difficult. It's very hard to be able to balance that out within there. I'm all for having those checks at the beginning, but don't keep checking me. I don't mind, as Dan was saying, back to the session recording. If you don't trust me, fine. Remove my copy paste, which is possible. Start watermarking my screen. Fine, I can still work. That's fine. I don't need copy paste and stuff in there. If you really don't trust me, put me to that level. But that doesn't actually impact the thing I'm reading and researching, me emailing people, me being able to put slide decks together or anything. That doesn't stop me being able to do that. I think that's a level. You've just got to find the line, haven't you, between secure and, and working.
I remember doing some sort of work for a housing association years ago, and they were using two-factor authentication. But what they got so they had like little offices for all the wardens. So what they'd have is like a dumb phone, just like a Nokia or something like that. And for the two-factor, the code would be sent through, and it was like it wouldn't expire for a week. And all the staff would check the phone when they logged in, with the same account. And so there's about 6 or 7 staff in this office, same account logging in, using that key code, the key and stuff like that. They all knew the password, they all knew the MFA, the two-factor token and stuff like that. And yeah, and that phone was just left there, and anyone could turn it on and see the two-factor token.
I mean, you're taking it, I suppose we're seeing it lighthearted here, but we're taking it down to a quite serious point. A lot of people, okay, on a construction site, they're busy, they're working. Equally, a lot of them, IT is not going to be the first part of their job. It's going to be either carpentry or plumbing or something that is very not IT based. Equally, the story you just gave could be exactly the same that I've heard of nurses and doctors in hospitals, of them sharing logins on ward machines, for example, and it might just have a post-it on it. Now, we joke and go, oh, that's ridiculous, but that happens. Hospitals are hacked a lot as well, and it's their security, because at the end of the day, we know there's not enough staff in hospitals, whether that be in the UK or otherwise. We equally know all of them are run off their feet, and their main job is keeping us alive and healthy and working. So their main job is not working out, well, was my x-ray secure? To the fact that I need this prescription secure. And they're like, well, that doesn't matter. That's okay, because they've done their job, which is nursing us and looking after us. So I think there's so many different verticals, so many different areas where this stuff is important, where we can't impact the user experience, but we've got to find a way to make them more secure. I think, all of us could probably think of some really quite high profile hospitals that have been hacked over the last, 5 years or so, where it's not just stealing our data. I know we joked in the outset about going, oh, well, they got so-and-so's x-rays, or we need to know that one has that prescription. I think it's more where we go back to the start of this conversation, where people want to cause chaos. If they're going in and they shut hospitals down, that's terrifying. And I know I've worked with hospitals in the past that's happened too. That is very, very scary.
Well, I used to work in the NHS 24 years ago, I think it was, and doing IT support.
Showing your age there, Dan.
Yeah.
I said a number.
That was all the old Metaframe. And that's when I first started with Citrix on the Metaframe stuff, Metaframe XP back then, I think it was. And,
excellent.
But when I was doing support, if you used to have to go to consultants' offices or doctors' offices, and you go there to fix the computer, and you wouldn't know how to log on because you had a problem because they're so busy. And you could always find the password. It would either be sellotaped onto the base unit, it'd be or on the desk or on a filing cabinet, or it'd be pinned to the notice board or a post-it note somewhere on the screen, maybe. And you could get into any system. And we used to have to do it on bank holidays. So you get called out on bank holiday, and they weren't there because they were in theatres and stuff. And you'd be able to log on to the PC and access their email and sort their email out. Cause usually it was like the PST filled up to 500 meg and stuff, and they couldn't use it anymore. But yeah, I don't know what it's like today. Maybe it's still the same. But it was at least now when I go to the doctor, I see them with cards that they're putting in, smart cards anyway. So hopefully it's a bit more secure.
I was
going to
say about that. I mean, I think, don't get me wrong, and I couldn't call anyone out, but I'm guessing there probably are still some hospitals up and down the UK and probably within Ireland as well that have got, someone sticking a post-it of a password and stuff on there. As we said, it's not part of their main job, the IT element. It's a part that makes their life easier to a degree, probably harder in some instances, but it's about obviously data record of where we can put this information, where there can be communication, and then a lot of people having one patient record. I know we're going down a health route here, but I think it's really important. And saying about the smart cards that you have, so obviously a couple of different vendors that do that, but the tap and go, being able to do that with their smart cards, Citrix links in with that, with the two different vendors that do it. I know I was doing some case studies years ago with Imprivata that were doing it, and being able to take your smart card, go from one machine, so whether it be your laptop that you're working on in your office, and being able to not have to take your laptop or iPad or whatever with you, you can go and use the terminal machine within that ward. You can tap on it, it automatically logs you in, and then you can type up all of those notes. You tap it and you leave, and then you know that everything's secure and you're taking it round with you. I remember doing a roadshow years ago with one of my old colleagues who's worked in and out of the NHS environment, and we actually were showing some of these devices and how they could do it at a roadshow within an NHS hospital down in the southwest. And we had a little dumb trolley all built up with it on there, and the nurses were trying to steal it. They went, "We want this," in radiography or something. It was absolutely brilliant. And they were like, "This is great. We want one of these." And they were trying to wheel it out the room. We were like, "We can deploy this for you. You don't have to take it." But it was a really nice story of where we were actually showing real time with these actual users how we can make life easier for them. I think there was a really nice stat of being able to use, if you were using Citrix, okay, it was Imprivata at the time, but obviously there are others as well that do it. That would save nurses, it was up to 2 hours a day of all this typing and all this extra work they were having to do later, because they could type it right then when they did it, tap and then leave, rather than take their notes, tap it back up later, or miss stuff. That's awful. And we've probably all had cases of where we've had maybe the wrong letters come through, the wrong appointments, been sent to the wrong place, or just had to wait a long time for information from our health practitioners. So yeah, it's a nice case study, definitely.
Brilliant. So let me kind of take a step back a little bit as well then. So I want to ask a question that we could challenge our listeners. What's one thing that you'd want every IT leader who might be listening today to this now to kind of go away and review in their environment this week if they had the opportunity to do so? Open to the floor.
I really like that as a question. That's a good one.
I think it gives them something to think about, right?
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I'd probably look at it from the first point you're coming into the system. So it's like looking in at your login. So it's like So if you look at people, you've got staff logging in, they're only using username and password and having no two-factor or MFA. That's the first thing I'd check out, because there is still a lot of people only using username and password. And we've seen attacks recently over the past couple of years where, it's so easy to get in. If you haven't got that MFA, those credentials can be stolen quite quickly with just a little phishing email and stuff like that. Someone clicks on the link and you've got the details straight away, and you don't need anything else to get in. Plus, the other thing is, if users are logging in like that as well, what kind of privileges they are. Are they just standard users, or do you have users who have got admin credentials, admin rights, domain admins and things like that? Because if you're just using username and password and someone gets hold of domain admin credentials, you're pretty much done in, aren't you? Because they're just going to go in, put ransomware on, and you're going to be getting an email asking you for a load of money to decrypt all these servers and stuff. So I'd say look at the login, the first point that people are coming in through to start off with, and then you can move on. But yeah, the login point is probably the most important.
Yeah, thinking the flip side of the coin there is actually the same answer as Dan, weirdly enough, but looking at it from another point of view. I know you're saying it from a security point of view, going, right, have we secured everyone? Have you checked? Even simple things like, I don't know if all of you have started doing it, there's a lot more increase on training about, informing your users about phishing attacks. But that wasn't the bit I wanted to look at. I would start looking at it going, okay, so you're looking at it from a log on, how people are accessing it. I want to look at how efficient are your logons? What are your logon times? What is your user experience like today? And that's where I look at it. Now, I totally get it. There's a security element to that as well. We can't just say, like I said with that example, which, if you can't just take it all away and then within 48 hours you're completely shut down because of a ransomware attack. That's not possible as well. But it's about optimizing these things. Let's start doing some cleaning, some due diligence checks. Are all of your versions patched and up to date? What have you asked your users? What have you asked your service desk? How many calls are they getting a day? Are most of them, I've forgotten my password, fine. Are most of them saying, I can't access this, it's taking minutes for me to log on? If those are the things, then it's really worthwhile either internally doing a health check, getting someone like Axess to do a health check for you, actually going through all of these from a granular detail to go, right, have I cleaned and checked everything within here? Is it all up to date? What are the problems and what is it that's causing this problem with my user experience? Then, obviously, we can look at it from Dan's point of view going, right, the problem might actually be the same thing. It could be security checks that are actually timing each other out. Like, could be a fault somewhere. There could be a vulnerability somewhere. It could be a whole host of different things. But I would want to look at it from the user experience perspective.
Another thing is that, if you've got public services as well, so you've got your gateway and things like that, but also you may have other systems. Maybe you've got a couple of web servers load balance, and you're offering like a login point to a backend SQL database. Well, if you've got the new Citrix licenses, you've got the NetScalers, you've got access to web application firewall. So you put them in front of your public services. You can stop SQL injection attacks and things like that on there. So. Yeah, I did say the login point, look at the login point, but look at all those other public login points as well, and how are you protecting them? If you've got the Citrix licenses, you've got all the new NetScaler licenses that are in there, and you've got premium features. You've got web application firewall. So yeah, look at that. Look at all your what's publicly accessible and how you can protect it.
Love that. Brilliant. Look, guys, we're probably going to have to wrap this up as much as I really don't want to. I think it's been an incredible session for our first podcast. I just want to close off with a couple of points, really. So obviously we know security is important, as we kind of alluded to at the beginning, but so is end user experience, right? And it's a lot of it comes back down to that balance. And it now has never been a harder time than ever, really, to find that balance. So obviously we're really keen to work with our customers, to work with everyone that needs us to find that balance. If you are listening and you want to go a little bit deeper, we do offer our Citrix security and posture health checks that both Dan and Kat talked about a bit earlier on. So by all means, get in touch with a member of our team and we can walk you through what's involved. But yeah, big thanks again to Dan, to Kat, and thank you for watching. I'm Chris, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you.